I used to think my Grandma Aurora was an open book, her gentle smile and warm blue eyes like a summer sky revealing all there was to know about her. She had this soothing presence, a calmness that wrapped around me like a favorite blanket on a cold day. I remember sitting beside her in the quiet of her little house, listening to her stories about days gone by, the soft hum of her voice mingling with the ticking clock and the faint scent of lavender in the air. To me, she was an unchanging lighthouse, steady, kind, and full of quiet wisdom. Yet I now realize how much of her life was shrouded in gentle secrecy, stories she chose not to tell, moments she kept hidden behind her tender smile. It wasn't until after she passed that I found myself wandering into her attic, that dusty, forgotten space filled with relics of her past. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and memories long kept silent. As I sifted through boxes and dusty trunks, my fingers brushed against something unexpected. A small leather-bound diary, tucked away inside a wooden box that had been sealed tight. The cover was worn, the leather cracked and faded, yet it carried a faint aroma, musty but somehow comforting, like the scent of old books and time itself. I hesitated, my heart pounding with curiosity and a strange sense of reverence, and slowly, I lifted the diary into my hands. The first touch sent a shiver through me, a mixture of anticipation and reverence. I could feel the fragile pages, the weight of secrets they held, whispering softly of stories waiting to be told. When I finally opened it, my eyes caught the faded ink, words that had been penned with care, with love, and perhaps with a hint of fear. The handwriting was delicate, almost trembling, as if the writer knew these words were meant to be hidden, protected from the world outside. I inhaled deeply, the faint scent of aged paper and a hint of dried flowers lingering in the air, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion. In that quiet moment, I realized that Grandma Aurora's life was far more complex than I had ever imagined. The stories she had shared with me, gentle and warm, were only fragments of a much larger, more intricate tapestry woven with love, sacrifice, and secrets kept close to her heart. As I gently turned each page, I felt a strange mixture of awe and reverence, like holding a fragile piece of her soul, a legacy she had carefully concealed for reasons I was only beginning to understand. I knew then that this diary was not just a collection of words, but a window into a hidden world, a story that would challenge everything I thought I knew about her. And so, I promised myself that I will uncover what lies within those pages, no matter how difficult or surprising it may be. This story, I know, will reveal powerful truths about forbidden love, about sacrifices made during dark times, and about the legacy that continues to echo through the generations that follow. It is a gift from her, a whisper from the past that calls out to be heard. I can feel it deep in my bones, this gentle but undeniable pull to understand her fully, to honor her by uncovering the truths she chose to keep hidden. If you're willing to walk this path with me, to listen to the stories buried beneath years of silence, I invite you to stay close. There is so much more to discover, something sacred, something that might change the way we see her, and perhaps the way we see ourselves. For now, I hold her diary close and I feel a quiet hope that even in the shadows, love and understanding can find a way to shine through, illuminating the hidden corners of a life well lived, filled with quiet strength and unspoken devotion. The early days in Willow Creek seemed to drift by like a gentle breeze, softly stirring the tall grasses that swayed along the winding dirt roads. It was a quiet place, untouched by the chaos of distant cities or the shadows of distant conflicts. The sun cast a warm golden hue over the rolling fields, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers and freshly turned earth. In those moments, life moved with a peaceful rhythm, meals shared around sunlit tables, laughter echoing through the open windows, and evenings spent beneath a tapestry of stars that seemed to stretch endlessly, whispering secrets only the night knew. Aurora was a girl of tender curiosity and quiet wonder, her eyes always seeking something beyond the simple horizon. Her features held a softness that matched the gentle landscape around her. Bright, observant, yet somehow wistful. She had a way of losing herself in the smallest details, the delicate veins of a leaf, the distant cry of a hawk, the way the sunlight danced on her mother's hair during morning chores. Her mind was a quiet sanctuary, filled with stories she read by candlelight, dreams spun from the pages of books she borrowed from the local library, and a yearning for something more than the familiar boundaries of her small world. Her family was woven into the very fabric of Willow Creek. Her father, a sturdy man with weathered hands and a deep love for the land, worked tirelessly on their farm, his voice often low but kind, guiding Aurora and her siblings through each day's tasks. Her mother, gentle and nurturing, had a calm strength that radiated through every meal prepared, every patch sown, every lullaby sung to lull her children to sleep. Thomas, her older brother, was a boy with aspirations that reached higher than the barn rafters, a restless dreamer with a twinkle of adventure in his eyes. He spent hours tinkering with models of airplanes, dreaming of the day he might soar above the clouds himself. Lily, her youngest sister, was a poetic soul with a gentle voice, often found scribbling verses in a worn notebook, capturing fleeting moments of beauty and longing. Their routines were simple yet sacred. Mornings began with the scent of fresh bread and the warmth of the sun spilling through the window. Aurora loved those quiet moments before sunrise, when she would sit by her window, clutching her favorite book, and watch the dawn slowly paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. She often wandered into the fields afterward, feeling the soft earth beneath her feet and the whisper of wind through the tall grass. She would lie on her back beneath the sprawling oak tree, her eyes tracing the shapes of clouds, imagining worlds beyond her own. Those hours of solitude brought her a strange comfort, yet also a quiet restlessness, a feeling that, somewhere out there beyond the familiar hills, something awaited her. In the evenings, the family gathered around the supper table, sharing stories of the day's work and dreams for the future. Aurora listened intently to her mother's tales of distant lands she'd heard of in her youth, and Thomas's animated stories of flights and adventures. Sometimes Aurora would look up at the starry sky from the porch, a soft ache blooming in her chest as she wondered about the world beyond Willow Creek. She knew her life was rooted here, in these fields and these faces, but her heart carried a gentle yearning, a whisper that there was more waiting for her somewhere beyond the horizon. Her inner world was filled with fleeting images of distant cities, bustling streets, and the endless sky she longed to explore. She often wondered what it would feel like to leave this peaceful life, to see the world in all its vastness and chaos. Yet at the same time, she cherished the quiet sanctuary of Willow Creek, the sense of belonging woven into every shared glance and every familiar song sung beneath the open sky. It was a delicate balance, her heart full of gratitude for her family's love, and her mind restless with dreams of discovery. Even amidst the serenity, there was a faint thread of anticipation woven into her days. She felt it in the way her thoughts fluttered like leaves caught in a breeze, in the way her fingers itched to turn the pages of a map, or to grasp the edges of a horizon she could barely see. It was a subtle call, a gentle reminder that her story was still unfolding, that her life was part of something larger than the boundaries of her small town. And so with every sunrise and sunset, Aurora held on to that quiet hope, carrying it softly in her heart like a treasured secret, waiting for the moment when her own wings might finally take her beyond the fields she loved so dearly. The gentle hum of the world outside Willow Creek had always seemed distant, like a soft whisper carried on the breeze. Life there moved at a slow, predictable rhythm, the seasons changing, the fields ripening, children's laughter echoing through the trees. Aurora's days were filled with simple pleasures, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky, gathering wildflowers by the creek, dreaming of adventures beyond the horizon. But even in the quietest moments, a faint undercurrent of change was beginning to stir, like the distant rumble of thunder on a clear day. It started subtly, so quietly that few noticed at first. The radio, once a source of comforting melodies and stories, now crackled with unfamiliar news. Words like war and conflict drifted into conversations at the market, hushed and hurried, as if speaking them aloud might summon the storm. Letters from relatives in distant cities arrived with hurriedly written words, some filled with hope, others with worry. Their tales of upheaval, of towns evacuated and borders shifting, crept into Aurora's world, turning her innocent daydreams into flickering shadows of doubt. Her parents, Thomas and Margaret, responded differently. Her father, ever the adventurer in spirit, saw opportunity in the chaos, an escape from the mundane, a way to prove bravery and strength. He spoke of joining efforts, of defending what was theirs, of making a difference with his hands and heart. Her mother, however, grew quieter, her gentle face shadowed with concern. She knew the fragile fabric of peace could unravel at any moment, and her love for her children deepened, tinged with a quiet fear that their innocence might be lost too soon. Aurora felt it too, this growing sense that the world she knew was slipping away, replaced by something unfamiliar and dangerous. Her heart fluttered with a strange mixture of curiosity and unease. She wondered how far that distant storm might reach, whether it would sweep into their quiet valley and change everything she held dear. Her restless thoughts turned inward, questioning the fairness of it all. Why must such darkness invade even the smallest corners of the earth? Why must innocence be tested by the weight of distant conflicts? It was during these days of quiet tension that a new presence arrived in Willow Creek, an outsider cloaked in mystery, whose arrival seemed to carry the wind of change itself. He was a young man, perhaps no older than Aurora, with a posture that held itself with a quiet confidence, yet an underlying restraint that hinted at secrets he refused to share. His eyes were dark and deep, like pools of unspoken stories, and there was a stillness about him that made Aurora feel both cautious and strangely drawn. He came into town one crisp autumn morning on foot, carrying a small bag slung over his shoulder, as if he had traveled far but carried little with him. There was something about him that set him apart from the local boys, his silence, his steady gaze, the way he seemed to listen more than he spoke. Aurora first noticed him at the village market, where the scent of fresh bread and ripe apples mingled with the cool air. He moved through the crowd quietly, observing, almost as if he was searching for something beneath the surface of everyday life. When their eyes met briefly, an electric hum seemed to pass between them, an unspoken curiosity that neither could ignore. His presence stirred a ripple of excitement and unease in Aurora's heart. She sensed that Elias, as she later learned he was called, was not just passing through. There was a heaviness about him, a subtle tension like a tightened wire ready to snap. She wondered about his story, what brought him here, what secrets he kept hidden beneath that calm exterior. Rumors whispered in her mind. Could he be a soldier? A spy? Someone fleeing from danger? The questions danced like shadows in her thoughts, impossible to pin down. In the quiet moments when she watched him from afar, Aurora felt a strange kinship. She too was learning about the world's darker truths, about the cruelty that sometimes lurked beneath the surface of peace. Elias's silent strength seemed to mirror her own growing awareness that life's innocence was fragile, easily shattered by forces beyond her control. Yet, beneath that, a flicker of hope remained. Perhaps he carried a purpose, a reason for being here that might change everything. As the days lengthened and the leaves turned to gold, Aurora's world shifted imperceptibly, like the slow turning of a page in a book she hadn't yet finished reading. The distant rumblings of war grew louder, a steady drumbeat in the background of her life. She listened to her parents' cautious conversations, felt her brother's daring spirit ignite with talk of adventure, and watched her sister's poetic soul grapple with the uncertainty that now clouded their days. And through it all, Elias lingered in the shadows of her mind, an enigma wrapped in quiet strength. His arrival was a whisper of something more, a hint that her peaceful world was about to be tested, that the innocence she held so dear would soon face its greatest challenge. She sensed that beneath his calm exterior lay stories of sacrifice, of hardship, of a destiny intertwined with the very chaos creeping closer every day. In her young heart, Aurora knew that everything was about to change. The world was no longer just a place of simple dreams and gentle mornings. It was a landscape where shadows lengthened, where love and fear danced on the edge of every moment. And as she watched Elias disappear into the distance one evening, leaving only the faint scent of rain and mystery behind, she felt a quiet resolve stirring within her, that no matter what was to come, she would face it with the same quiet courage that had carried her through all her quiet years in Willow Creek. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world outside seemed to hold its breath, Aurora found her solace in the faint glow of her candle and the worn pages of her secret diary. It was her sanctuary, a place where she could whisper her fears and hopes without fear of judgment or betrayal. She often wondered if Elias kept a similar refuge, somewhere hidden from the prying eyes of those who might wish him harm. Their stolen moments in the shadows had become more than mere whispers of affection. They were anchors in a tumultuous sea, fragile but fiercely real. Tonight, as she delicately traced her finger over the inked words, Aurora felt a strange warmth amid the growing chill of fear that had settled over Willow Creek. Elias had been confiding in her more openly, revealing fragments of his history, his exile from Germany, the shadowy missions he'd been part of, and the burden of secrecy that clung to him like a second skin. His voice, usually controlled and calm, carried a trace of vulnerability now, as if speaking of his past gave him some relief, some anchor against the storm. He had told her about the artifact, a device of encryption so powerful that it could change the course of the war, or end it. The late mentor, a clockmaker with hands that moved with precision and purpose, had left him clues, cryptic symbols hidden in the workings of old clocks and hidden beneath the silent, watchful eyes of the church bell. Aurora listened, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and dread, knowing that their pursuit was dangerous, more dangerous than they could fully grasp. The town, once so peaceful, now whispered with suspicion. She had begun to notice subtle changes, strangers wandering through the streets with hurried, furtive glances, shadows lurking where light once reigned. She could feel their eyes, see the way some people's faces flickered with unease when her family passed by. The presence of disguised agents, perhaps Nazi operatives cloaked in civilian guise, sent shivers down her spine. They moved like ghosts, quiet and unseen, yet their intent was as clear as the cold wind that swept through the trees, searching, watching, waiting. And Elias, in his quiet resolve, was determined to find the artifact before it fell into the wrong hands. His mission had become her mission, her secret pact of courage. She knew that beneath his reserved exterior beat a heart fierce with purpose, and that his love for her was woven into every decision he made. In his eyes she saw the reflection of her own growing resolve, a flickering light in the darkness. Their clandestine meetings had taken on a new urgency. Last night, beneath the ancient oak by the creek, they had spoken softly, their words fragile as glass. Elias had reached out, taking her hand in his touch gentle but firm. His eyes searched hers, and in that quiet exchange, she saw the weight of his secret, the truth he dared not speak aloud yet carried with every breath. "I'm not just a scientist," he whispered, voice low and trembling. "There's more to my story, Aurora. I've been running from something. From someone. I'm not safe here, not entirely. But I had to find you. I had to trust you with this." His words hung in the air, heavy with the unspoken promise of loyalty and danger. She felt her breath catch, her mind racing to comprehend the depth of his sacrifice. As the night deepened, Aurora's thoughts spiraled. Her heart ached with the knowledge that loving Elias was a risk, one that could cost her everything. Yet, in her core, she sensed that her destiny was intertwined with his, that their shared courage could forge a path through the darkness. She clutched her diary close, writing furiously, pouring her fears, her hope, and her love into those pages. The ink seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, a secret testament to her evolution from a girl who merely observed to a young woman willing to stand against the tide. The danger outside grew palpable. She could feel it in the way the air seemed thicker, the shadows longer. She noticed the subtle movements of the townsfolk, an unfamiliar gait, a glance that lingered too long. The whispers of surveillance, the faint hum of unseen eyes, all told her that Willow Creek was no longer the safe haven it once appeared. The presence of enemies was like a creeping vine, winding through the roots of her peaceful life. And yet, amid the encroaching shadows, Aurora found a strange strength blooming within her. She was no longer merely a spectator of her own life but becoming an active participant. Her moral compass, once guided by her love for her family and her dreams of adventure, now pointed decisively toward protecting what mattered most. The internal struggle was fierce. Do she and Elias risk everything to retrieve the artifact and expose the truth, or do they retreat, safeguarding their loved ones at the cost of their own futures? Her transformation was subtle but profound. She learned to listen to her instincts, to trust her courage, to let her heart guide her steps. Each decision became heavier, yet more meaningful, as if she were forging her own path through the labyrinth of danger and desire. Her love for Elias was no longer a secret only in her diary. It was a beacon, a quiet rebellion against the darkness threatening to swallow them whole. In those stolen hours, her diary became more than words. It was her confidant, her mirror, her silent witness to a girl on the cusp of becoming a woman. She found hope in her writing, strength in her fears, and clarity in her love. Her devotion to Elias deepened, not just as a matter of romance but as a moral necessity. To keep him safe, to preserve the fragile hope of a better future, she was willing to risk everything. And so with each passing night, Aurora's resolve hardened. The shadows lengthened, the danger grew nearer, but her spirit remained unyielding. She knew that her journey was only beginning, that her courage would be tested in ways she could never have imagined. And in her heart, She carried the quiet hope that love, despite all odds, would be the light that guided her through the darkness. The air in the underground chamber was thick with silence, broken only by the faint drip of water echoing against cold stone walls. Shadows clung to every corner, whispering secrets of ages long past. Aurora's hands trembled as she reached out, her fingertips brushing the cold metal of the artifact, the legendary device they had searched for with every ounce of hope and desperation in their hearts. Her breath caught, and for a moment, she felt the weight of history pressing down on her, as if the very walls remembered the stories buried within them. Elias's voice, steady but strained, broke the silence. "We did it," he whispered, eyes shining with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and sweat, yet there was a calm in his gaze that belied the chaos that had just transpired. The chamber had tested them. A labyrinth of ancient traps, clever mechanisms designed to protect what was hidden. Elias's mentor, the master clockmaker, had crafted these defenses with a precision that rivaled the finest gears and cogs he admired. Every lock, every coded twist, had been a testament to human ingenuity, and now their victory felt almost fragile enough to shatter at any moment. But their triumph was already unraveling. Suddenly, the distant sound of footsteps echoed through the darkness, growing louder, more insistent. The sharp scrape of boots on stone. Nazi agents, relentless in their pursuit, had tracked their trail, and now they burst into the chamber like a storm. Shadows peeled back to reveal figures cloaked in black, their eyes cold and hungry for the prize that Aurora now held. The air grew thick with the scent of oil and dust, and the flickering torchlight cast grotesque shadows that danced on the walls, turning the chamber into a nightmare landscape. Aurora's heart hammered in her chest as panic surged through her veins. She grabbed Elias's arm, pulling him back as the first shot rang out. The chaos erupted into a frantic scramble, clumsy and desperate, with crouched figures darting between shadows, trying to find cover to escape. Aurora's mind raced, flashes of her training, her instincts guiding her. She remembered her grandfather's stories, the importance of silence, of patience, of knowing when to move and when to wait. Her eyes darted around, seeking a way out, a hidden passage, a secret door. Her pulse pounded, loud and deafening in her ears, threatening to drown out everything else. Elias fought to hold the artifact close, his face grim with effort. But the agents were closing in, their guns blazing. In that chaos, Elias was struck, falling wounded, blood seeping through his fingers. His eyes met Aurora's in a moment of pure agony, a silent plea that cut deeper than any wound. With his last strength, he pushed the artifact into her hands, clutching her face with trembling fingers. "Take it," he rasped, voice barely more than a whisper. "It's yours now. Finish what we started. Protect it." The tears blurred Aurora's vision as she clung to him, her heart breaking with a ferocious ache. She knew in that instant this was goodbye. No last words, no promises. Just a quiet, desperate farewell amid the noise of gunfire and shouts. Elias's sacrifice was complete, sealed in that moment, and Aurora's world shifted forever. With trembling hands, she managed to slip the artifact into her satchel, then spun away, racing through the labyrinthine corridors. Her mind was a whirlwind of grief, fear, and fierce resolve. Every step felt heavy, as if the very stone beneath her feet mourned along with her. Her legs carried her past collapsing walls and twisting tunnels, each breath ragged and sharp. She could hear the shouts of the agents behind her, closing in, relentless in their pursuit. Finally, she burst out into the cool night air, the dark sky stretching endlessly above her. Her body shook with sobs and adrenaline, but her mind was already turning inward, an unbreakable resolve forming from the shards of her grief. Elias was gone, sacrificed for her, for their cause. The artifact was safe, but at what cost? Her heart ached with the emptiness of his loss. Yet within that ache, a new fire ignited. She clutched the diary she carried, her tether to everything she was and everything she was destined to become. Her writings, her memories, her hopes, soon they would be her armor. She knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one forged in pain but driven by love and purpose. Elias's sacrifice had carved a permanent mark on her soul, and she vowed to carry it forward, to honor his courage and their shared dream of a better future. As she fled into the wilderness, the shadows of the night seemed to whisper their silent blessings, even as they threatened to swallow her whole. Her tears fell freely now, Not just of grief but of a fierce, unyielding hope. In that moment she understood what her grandmother had always told her. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the deepest sorrow, and the greatest love is born in sacrifice. Aurora's journey was no longer just about discovery. It was about carrying the legacy of Elias, a legacy of love, courage, and unwavering resolve. And though her heart was shattered, she knew deep down that she was destined to be more than just a survivor. She was to become a guardian of light in the darkness, no matter what shadows lay ahead. The darkness outside was thick, heavy with silence, as Aurora stumbled through the labyrinth's remnants, her breath ragged and shallow. Every step felt like she was dragging her own bones, her shoes scraping against cold stone, the weight of the artifact pressing into her side, heavy like a secret she could no longer carry openly. She didn't look back, didn't dare. Her mind replayed Elias's last moments, his face pale, eyes fierce with something she hadn't yet understood, and she knew that if she stopped, she might shatter entirely. So she pushed forward, her body trembling, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, until the narrow opening of the woods swallowed her whole. The forest was a blur of shadows and whispers, the moonlight barely piercing the canopy. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves made her flinch, instinct sharpening her senses. She ran without thinking, driven by something primal, fear, grief, perhaps a flicker of hope she dared not name. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but her mind was a storm of images. Elias's sacrifice, his words echoing in her ears. Keep it safe. Keep it hidden. And her own trembling promise to do just that. She didn't look back, she refused to. She knew the danger wasn't over, that somewhere behind her, soldiers or worse lurked, hunting her as much as the artifact. When she finally collapsed against the rough bark of a fallen tree, her body shuddered with tears she couldn't hold back. Her breathing was ragged, each breath a painful reminder of what she'd lost. Her hands trembled as she clutched Elias's diary, its worn cover pressed close to her chest. She didn't want to face the mirror in her mind. Her face was dirt-streaked, eyes red and hollow, the ghost of someone who had just watched her world burn away. The silence inside her was deafening, an emptiness that threatened to swallow her whole. She stayed there, trembling until exhaustion forced her eyelids shut, and for a moment, she let herself drift into numbness. But even in that fragile sleep, the ache of loss lingered, a relentless weight pressing down on her soul. When she woke, the first thing she saw was the diary, its pages filled with Elias's hurried notes, sketches, and the occasional scribbled message. Not poetic or neat but raw, an unfiltered glimpse into his mind, a record of the moments that had led them here. She clutched it tightly, feeling the rough paper against her palms, as if holding onto a piece of Elias himself. Back in her small home, the world outside moved on, unaware of the storm inside her. Her family noticed her bruises, the shadows beneath her eyes, but they saw only the surface of her sorrow. They spoke softly, offering comfort she couldn't accept. She nodded, pretending to be present, while inside, she was hollow, fractured by grief and a burning need to understand. No one knew what she carried, how the weight of Elias's death and the artifact pressed into her like a second skin. She kept everything locked away, even from herself, because to admit the truth would be to shatter what little remained of her innocence. In the quiet hours of the night, when the house was still and her family slept, Aurora found herself drawn to Elias's belongings. She avoided mirrors, flinched at her reflection when she caught it, and instead turned to the diary. Her fingers trembled as she opened it again, reading his words that seemed to bleed off the pages, raw with urgency and fear. She read about the artifact, the danger it represented, and Elias's own fears. There was a coded entry, a line that seemed out of place, like a key she hadn't yet found. Her mind raced, trying to decipher it, feeling a flicker of something like hope amid the despair. She didn't sleep much after that. Instead, she began to seek out small clues, bits of Elias's life she'd overlooked before. She rummaged through drawers, found maps tucked away in dusty boxes, notes written in hurried handwriting. Her eyes darted over every detail, her heart pounding with a mixture of grief and determination. Each discovery was a whisper of Elias's world, of the man who had believed in something bigger than himself. Slowly, the numbness was cracking, replaced by a quiet resolve, an ember flickering in the darkness. She knew she couldn't forget what had happened, nor could she pretend it hadn't changed her. But she also understood now that her grief was intertwined with something else, something that refused to let her fall apart completely. That flicker of purpose was fragile, yet persistent, growing stronger with each passing hour. It was not revenge or anger, but a quiet insistence to protect what Elias had fought for, even if she didn't yet know how. Her hands clenched around the artifact and the diary, holding onto both as if they could anchor her to some semblance of meaning. And so, in the shadows of her room, amid the remnants of her heartbreak, Aurora began to take small, careful steps. She would study, learn, hide what she knew. The world outside might see her as a girl broken by loss, but inside something new was stirring. An awareness that her pain was a seed, and from it, something fierce and unseen would rise. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she understood one thing. She would carry Elias's memory, his hope, and the weight of the artifact with her. And in that quiet, trembling moment she made a promise, to herself, to Elias's spirit, that she would not let his sacrifice be in vain. Aurora packed her few belongings with trembling hands, feeling the weight of her decision settle deep within her chest. The small town of Willow Creek had been both sanctuary and prison. The quiet woods, the familiar faces, the comfort of routine now felt like shadows closing in. She knew that staying meant risking everything, that the enemies hunting Elias's legacy wouldn't pause or forget. So, with a resolve born from quiet desperation and a flicker of hope, she turned her back on the only life she'd ever known, stepping into a larger city where anonymity could be her shield. The city's streets stretched out before her like a labyrinth, bustling and indifferent, alive with the hum of distant voices and the clatter of footsteps. Aurora found a modest apartment tucked into an unassuming corner, its walls holding echoes of lives long gone, yet her presence somehow made it her own. Here, amid the unfamiliarity, she felt the stirrings of a new purpose, an unspoken vow to understand the artifact, to unlock its secrets and safeguard Elias's sacrifice. Every morning, she immersed herself in the flickering glow of library lamps, poring over dusty books, faded maps, and cryptic notes from Elias's journal, her eyes tracing symbols and codes that once seemed indecipherable. She learned to read between the lines, to recognize patterns in the chaos, her mind slowly adapting to the language of espionage and clandestine communication. The notes Elias left behind became her guides, their faded ink whispering clues and warnings. The realization grew within her that the artifact was more than a relic, an intelligence tool capable of deciphering enemy codes, predicting moves before they happened. Its power was formidable, and she understood that mastery of it could shift the tides of a war, even if she only wielded a fragment of its potential. As days turned into weeks, Aurora's world narrowed to the pursuit of knowledge and the subtle art of observation. She practiced the delicate dance of discretion, learning how to blend into her surroundings, how to catch a glimpse of a suspicious figure without drawing attention. She watched strangers in parks, listened subtly to overheard conversations in cafes, her senses honed to detect the faintest flicker of danger. There was an art to walking through a crowd without seeming to notice anyone. Eyes that lingered just a moment too long, ears that caught whispers beneath the noise, all controlled by a quiet resolve that grew stronger with each passing day. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit alone in her dim apartment, the only sound her steady breathing and the distant hum of the city outside. Her mind would drift back to Elias, to the stories he had told in his diary, to the sacrifices he made. Tears sometimes welled up unbidden, but she fought to keep them hidden. Instead, she clung to the warmth of his words, to the belief that she carried a piece of his courage within her. The loneliness pressed heavily at times, a sharp ache in her chest, yet it became fuel rather than weakness. Every quiet moment was an act of rebellion against the darkness threatening to swallow her whole. The danger was never far from her thoughts. She could feel it lurking in the shadows, behind the flickering streetlights, or in the cold glance of a stranger whose eyes lingered just a second too long. One evening, as she hurried down a deserted alley, her senses prickled with alertness. A figure emerged from the shadows, and her heart clenched with primal fear. Her steps slowed, her breath steadying as she subtly traced her hand along her coat pocket, where she kept Elias's notes and a small, concealed device, her tools of survival. The figure watched her, silent and calculating, but she managed to slip past unnoticed, her pulse pounding with relief and adrenaline. Every day was a careful balancing act, between learning, evading, and staying alive. She knew that the enemies, relentless and cunning, would not give up easily. Some nights she would wake in a cold sweat, the echo of a distant footstep or a whispered threat lingering in her mind. Yet, amid the constant tension, Aurora discovered a quiet resilience awakening within her. The grief over Elias's sacrifice, once raw and overwhelming, now tempered her resolve. She was no longer just the girl who mourned. She was becoming someone capable of protecting what Elias had fought so hard to defend. Every small victory, deciphering a coded message, slipping past a surveillance camera, recognizing a potential threat, felt like a fragile thread holding her to her purpose. Her fingers, once unsure, became steadier as she practiced discreet communication methods, learning to send and receive covert signals without arousing suspicion. Each step forward reaffirmed her belief that she was forging her own path, that Elias's spirit was guiding her through the shadows. Yet, the emotional toll lingered beneath her steady exterior. There were moments when the loneliness threatened to drown her, when the weight of secrecy pressed down like a heavy cloak. She often found herself gazing out over the city skyline at night, wondering if she was truly making a difference, if her efforts would ever be enough. But then she remembered Elias's words, his hope, his sacrifice, and something deep within her stirred, a flicker of light amid the darkness. In these quiet hours she would open Elias's journal once more, reading his meticulous notes, deciphering the clues he left behind. The pages became her sanctuary, a bridge to the past and a map to her future. She saw her reflection in the faded ink, no longer a helpless girl, but a young woman forging her destiny through patience and quiet strength. Her resolve grew with each passing day, fueled by love, loss, and an unyielding desire to protect the fragile hope Elias had entrusted her with. Aurora knew that the path ahead was fraught with danger, that enemies lurked in every shadow, waiting for her misstep. But she also understood that her greatest weapon was her mind, her ability to observe, to adapt, to remain unseen. She was no longer a girl trembling at the edge of a war she didn't fully understand. Now she was becoming something stronger, someone who would stand against the darkness, who would guard Elias's legacy, and who, despite her fears, would do whatever it took to ensure that hope endured. As the final echoes of distant artillery faded into silence and the world seemed to hold its breath in a fragile pause of relief, Aurora's hands trembled, not from fear, but from a strange, almost reverent exhaustion. She sat quietly in the corner of her modest home, the artifact resting softly in her lap, now more a cherished relic than a burden, a symbol of love, sacrifice, and secrets kept safe through the darkest of days. The war had finally drawn its last breath, and the weight of those countless nights spent decoding, listening, and risking everything eased just a little. Yet, in her heart, she carried a quiet pride, for she knew her small voice, her quiet transmissions, had helped change the course of history, frustrating enemy plans, guiding allies with whispers of crucial intelligence. She remembered the tense moments when she had risked everything to send those messages, her fingers trembling as she tapped out codes that mattered more than words could say. Each transmission was a delicate thread woven into the fabric of victory, and she had learned to hide her fear behind a calm that only years of keeping secrets could forge. There were nights when her heart pounded so fiercely she thought it might betray her, but she pressed on, driven by love for Elias, for the hope of a better future, for the countless lives waiting for peace. And now, as peace finally settled over the land like a gentle, healing rain, Aurora felt a strange, bittersweet tangle of emotions, exhaustion, pride, and a profound sense of fulfillment. In the stillness that followed the end of the conflict, Aurora chose to step back from the shadows of her clandestine life. She returned to Willow Creek, to the quiet simplicity she had once cherished before the world had turned upside down. The fields and trees welcomed her like old friends, their familiar scents and colors soothing her restless soul. But her purpose had shifted. Her mission was no longer secret missions or coded whispers. Instead, she poured her strength into tending her garden, sharing stories with neighbors, and helping those whose lives had been scarred by the war. Her days became filled with gentle acts of kindness, teaching children, comforting the weary, and listening to the silent stories etched into their eyes. The artifact, once a source of tension and danger, now sat safely in a cherished music box she kept close. It was no longer a symbol of conflict, but a vessel of love and sacrifice. Every time she looked at it, she felt Elias's presence, his hope, his courage, embedded in its silent presence. She knew it was more than a relic. It was a testament to their bond, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, love could forge paths through shadows. Carefully, she kept it protected, knowing that someday perhaps her story and Elias's legacy would serve as a quiet lesson for others, to remind them that hope, no matter how fragile, could endure through the most harrowing storms. As the years flowed gently by, Aurora blossomed into the person everyone knew her to be. A warm, wise grandmother with a calm smile and eyes that shimmered with quiet strength. She became a pillar of her community, a living testament to resilience and grace. Children would gather around her, eager to hear old stories, unaware that many of her tales carried the whispers of secret missions and dangerous nights. Her voice, now soft and steady, carried the weight of experience, an unspoken promise that even amid hardship, love and hope could flourish. She had learned to listen more than she spoke, to hold her memories tenderly, and to find serenity in the simple acts of caring. And as she sat in her favorite rocking chair, watching the sunset cast golden hues across the fields, she often thought of Elias, the young man whose courage had ignited her own. She remembered the countless nights when she deciphered his words in the diary, feeling the warmth of his hope seep into her soul. That diary, that artifact, was her anchor, a reminder that love's sacrifice was never in vain. It had shaped her into this peaceful woman, a grandmother whose serenity masked a lifetime of silent bravery. Her story was woven into the fabric of her being, a quiet testament to the enduring power of love and the strength found in sacrifice. The narrator, listening to these memories, can't help but feel a deep sense of awe. Aurora's life, so seemingly simple on the surface, carried within it the quiet heroism of someone who had fought battles not on open fields, but in the shadows, with only her courage and her love as weapons. Her journey had transformed her from a frightened girl into a beacon of resilience, a woman whose sacrifices had helped shape a future worth fighting for. And now, in her peaceful twilight years, she radiated the kind of wisdom that only time, hardship, and love could forge. Her story, as it softly unfolds in every gentle gesture and every tender word, remains a shining example that even in the quietest lives, there can be profound strength and unyielding hope. In the end, Aurora is not just a survivor of war. She is its quiet victor, holding on to her memories with grace, her heart open to the healing power of love and community. Her legacy is not only in the artifact she safeguarded but in the gentle, enduring spirit she embodies, one of serenity, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of hope that carry us through even the darkest nights. And as the narrator reflects on her, understanding the depth of her sacrifice and love, they realize that her story is not just one of war and loss, but of the quiet triumph of the human spirit, forever etched into her gentle smile and the timeless lessons she shares with those willing to listen. As I sit quietly in the dim light of my study, the worn leather cover of Aurora's diary rests softly in my hands, its pages filled with her delicate script, every word a whisper from a life lived quietly yet fiercely. For years, I had regarded these pages as mere relics of a distant past, fragments of a story that belonged to her alone. But now, as I trace the fading ink, I realize that this fragile book is much more than a collection of memories. It is a window into her soul, a mirror reflecting her deepest hopes, fears, and unwavering strength. It's astonishing how something so small can carry the weight of a life so richly woven with courage and love. Looking back, I remember the stories she used to tell us as children. Fairy tales spun with gentle voices, stories of magic and heroism that seemed to shimmer beyond our reach. But as I now read her words, I see those stories in a new light. They were never just bedtime tales meant to soothe restless minds. They were metaphors, subtle messages woven into her narratives, revealing her own battles and resilience. She spoke of forests that hid secrets, of animals that dared the impossible, of storms that tested the strength of the brave. Each story, I realize, was a quiet lesson, a reflection of her extraordinary courage during the darkest days of her life, when she carried the weight of secrets and sacrifice with a calm dignity that I had only begun to understand. Aurora's true legacy, I see clearly now, is not merely in the artifacts she hid or the secrets she kept. It lies in her unshakable spirit, her capacity to endure, to love unconditionally, and to find beauty even amid chaos. Her stories, her quiet strength, and her unwavering hope have become threads that connect her to us across time. It's as if her life, with all its complexities, has left behind a gentle yet powerful echo that continues to resonate through generations. Her wisdom, distilled into simple stories and tender gestures, reminds me that true resilience often resides in the softest words, the smallest acts of kindness, in the patience of a woman who weathered storms unseen. As I reflect on her journey, her fight for survival, her unwavering hope, I realize how much her struggle mirrors my own. The challenges I face now, the uncertainties that sometimes threaten to overwhelm me, seem less daunting in the light of her example. She endured so much with quiet grace, transforming suffering into a quiet strength that refused to be broken. Her life is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the midst of darkness, hope can bloom quietly, nurtured by love and courage. There's a profound peace that washes over me as I hold her diary close, a sense of clarity that I hadn't known before. In her words, I find reassurance that even in our most lonely moments, we are never truly alone. Her stories, her sacrifices, and her love are woven into the fabric of my existence, offering guidance and comfort. I understand now that her greatest gift to us was not the secrets she kept or the hardships she endured, but the unspoken truth that strength is often found in vulnerability, and hope is born from the quiet act of holding on when everything around us seems to fall apart. In this quiet moment, I feel a renewed sense of purpose. Aurora's life has become a gentle reminder that our stories, no matter how small or hidden, are vital. They are the treasures we carry, treasures that shape us and inspire others long after we are gone. Her example teaches me that the most profound acts of heroism are often silent, rooted in love, patience, and resilience. It's a lesson I want to carry forward, a legacy not of grand achievements but of everyday acts that affirm our shared humanity. Looking into her words, I see that her story is not just about survival. It is about the enduring power of hope and the unbreakable bond of love that sustains us through the darkest hours. Her life, with all its quiet heroism, has shown me that even the most ordinary days are woven with extraordinary strength. And as I close her diary, I do so with a heart full of gratitude, knowing that her story has transformed my understanding of what it means to truly live with courage and kindness. In honoring Aurora's memory, I am reminded of the importance of uncovering and sharing our hidden stories, for they are the threads that connect us all. Her life teaches us that within every quiet act of love and resilience lies a story worth telling, one that can inspire others to find their own strength in the face of adversity. Her legacy is not just in the secrets she kept but in the hope she sows with each gentle word, each act of quiet bravery, and every moment she chose love over fear. And in that realization I find my own peace, knowing that her story, like ours, is a testament to the enduring power of hope, love, and the unbreakable spirit of the human heart. As we close the pages on Grandma Aurora's story, we find ourselves holding something far more precious than words, an enduring reminder of the quiet strength that resides within each of us. Her life, filled with courage in moments of darkness, sacrifices made out of love, and resilience that refused to falter, teaches us that even the faintest whisper of hope can illuminate the deepest shadows. Aurora's journey was not marked by grand gestures or heroic accolades. Instead, it was built on small acts of bravery, unwavering patience, and a deep understanding that true heroism often lives in the silent spaces between words. Her hidden diary, a symbol of her inner world, revealed stories of sacrifice and hope that continue to inspire long after her voice has faded into the echoes of time. If her story has touched your heart, if it has stirred within you a renewed sense of strength or a gentle reminder that love and resilience are the most powerful forces we carry, then perhaps her mission here has found a place within your own life. Stories like Aurora's are not merely tales told in the quiet comfort of memory. They are seeds planted in the fertile ground of our spirits, waiting to blossom in acts of kindness, moments of courage, and the simple yet profound act of holding on to hope amid life's uncertainties. When we share these stories, when we carry their lessons forward, we keep alive the luminous spirit of those who have gone before us, reminding ourselves that even in the smallest gestures, there lies an immeasurable power. Now I invite you, dear listener, to reflect on this gentle legacy. What secret did Grandma Aurora hold closest to her heart? Was it a hope she dared not speak aloud, a love she kept hidden behind her steady eyes, or perhaps a quiet promise she made to herself, to endure, to believe, to love unconditionally? Think about the stories you carry within you, the moments of quiet bravery that define your own path. Every life has its hidden depths, and every story, no matter how small, has the potential to ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. Perhaps as you sit with these thoughts, you can see that Aurora's story is not just her own. It's a mirror reflecting the resilience we all hold within. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, our capacity to love, to hope, and to persevere can shine brighter than any shadow. Her legacy challenges us to look beyond the surface, to listen to the quiet stories of strength that often go unnoticed, and to cherish the hidden depths in ourselves and others. Her life, with all its quiet heroism, beckons us to find beauty in the everyday, to nurture the hope that sustains us, and to carry her story forward in our own unique ways. So as we bid farewell to Grandma Aurora's tale, let us carry her gentle message in our hearts, that the true essence of heroism resides not in grandeur, but in the sincerity of love, the patience of resilience, and the courage to face each new day with hope. May her story remind us that even in the most ordinary moments, there lies a spark of extraordinary strength, an enduring light that can guide us through life's most challenging times. And perhaps in sharing her story, we can inspire others to find their own hidden courage, their own quiet resilience, and their own capacity to love without boundaries. Now I wonder, what secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? Was it a dream she kept sacred, a hope she nurtured in the quiet corners of her mind, or a love she carried in her soul? I invite you to think about that, to hold on to it, and to reflect on the stories that live within you. Because in the end, it is these stories, our stories, that define us, connect us, and remind us that even in the most ordinary days, we are capable of extraordinary acts of kindness and strength. Thank you for sharing in Aurora's journey, for listening with an open heart, and for carrying her legacy forward. Remember, every one of us has a story worth telling, and in sharing ours we keep alive the hope and love that bind us all together.